Premier has some remarks, and then you're going to hear from Dr. Karen Grimsrud, who is the Chief Medical Officer of Health for the province, and then Chad Morrison will give an update on the fire situation, both affecting Fort McMurray and Little Smoky.
Good morning, everyone. I have a brief update on the fire situation in northern Alberta today and the steps that are being taken to prepare the community of Fort McMurray for the safe return of residents. I don't have an announcement today on when that will be, but I'm hoping that we'll have some information and some timelines that I can share by the end of this week. So first of all, with respect to the general fire update, there were 4 new wildfire starts in the last 24 hours. Currently, there are 15 wildfires burning. 3 are out of control, 1 is being held, 8 are under control, and 3 have been turned over to local authorities. Across the province, there are 1,919 firefighters, 161 helicopters, 29 air tankers, and 377 pieces of heavy equipment. While attention has mostly been focused on the Fort McMurray fire, given its severe impact, there are other fires burning in Alberta, including the Clear Hills fire that crossed into Alberta from BC, and a new fire in Greenview County that now measures roughly 800 hectares, and it is also classified as out of control. So this is the fire that has caused the mandatory evacuation of the hamlet of Little Smoky, involving 100 to 200 people. A reception center has been established at Paradise Inn at Valley View. At this time, Highway 43 remains open. So on the Fort McMurray fire continues to burn out of control. It's estimated to be roughly 285,000 hectares, 10 to 12 kilometers from the Saskatchewan border. With the return of warmer weather, around 25 degrees and 26 tomorrow, humidity of 15% and winds from the southwest, fire conditions are really as bad now as they were on the first day of the fire, and we expect a lot of fire activity today. One can only hope that the Alberta tradition of a cold and wet May long weekend will reappear later this week. The fact is that most of Alberta remains under conditions of extreme fire risk, and we are only at the beginning of what could be a very long fire season. So I'd like to remind all Albertans that we have a fire ban across much of Alberta for a reason. We have a ban on recreational use of off-highway vehicles across much of the province for a reason. And we continue to ask that these bans be respected for a reason. And that parts of this province where these activities are permitted, that even there we ask that people be extremely careful. We're asking Albertans to continue to be very careful with fires where they are permitted, with cigarette butts, please don't throw them out your car window, and with off-highway vehicle use where it's allowed. So I'd like to speak briefly to the steps that are being taken to make the community of Fort McMurray safe for re-entry. You will recall that last week 5 conditions were laid out that need to be in place for re-entry. They are that, first of all, the wildfire is no longer an imminent threat to the community, that critical infrastructure is repaired to provide basic service, that essential services such as fire, EMS, police, and healthcare are restored to basic levels, that hazardous areas are secure, and that local government is reestablished. Work has been progressing on all of these fronts, in some cases faster than previously expected. So regarding the first condition, though, there continue to be hot spots surrounding Fort McMurray. Any of them could flare up when the wind changes. There is active fire growth on all fronts surrounding the community. In the south, roughly 1 kilometers away, the fire has reached to the south, roughly 1 kilometers away from the Cheecham Tank Farm, and our crews have dozers, crews working very hard to hold that boundary, and as well, Enbridge and Cheecham have added additional industrial specialized firefighters to work on that location. And as much as it's come a bit close, we expect the wind will be favorable in that regard today. To the north and the west of the city, there continues to be more activity with the wind changes, and there is some concern that there'll be movement on the western flank of the city, and you'll hear more about this from Chad, but they're expecting it to be a very busy day for firefighters in that part of the city, and they will be challenged in that area. There also continue to be a number of hotspots within the town site that regional firefighters are dealing with on an as-needed basis. Now, a significant issue that has arisen is air quality. The Air Quality Health Index is based on measurements of 3 contaminants: smoke, ozone, and nitrogen dioxides. It's generally measured, as many of you will know, on a scale of 1 to 10. It's a formula that in extreme conditions can generate results well over 10. As of 10 a.m. this morning, the Air Quality Health Index in Fort McMurray was 38. Alberta Health Services has recommended that members of the public who had been previously arranging to return to the area under various requests, that they not return until those conditions improve. Those already working up in the area have been advised of the health issues. The re-entry of additional response personnel has been delayed, as has the vehicle retrieval efforts that we announced earlier. Dr. Karen Grimsrud, Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health, will speak in greater detail about this in a few minutes. But it is clear that this is something that could potentially delay recovery work and a return to the community. The good news, as I mentioned, is that on this front, the response personnel up until this point have been making faster than anticipated progress on their reentry work within the city. There are currently hundreds of workers in Fort McMurray right now working on critical infrastructure in these very difficult conditions. Electricity service has been restored to most of Fort McMurray, as well as municipal buildings in Anzac. Fire crews are positioned to deal with any issues that may result from the re-energization process. Gas service has been restored to about 50% of the city. This is a very labor-intensive process. Gas lines connected to damaged homes have to be evacuated and isolated from the system, and then air and the service lines need to be cleared prior to gas service being restored. So they're working hard at it. The water treatment plan is working, although the boil water order for the area remains in effect and will probably do so for some time. Work continues to restore the water treatment plant to normal operations so it can provide safe drinking water in the long term. An operating plan has also been developed for the wastewater treatment plant. The landfill is back in operation as of May 12th with capacity to accept waste except for hazardous materials. Damage assessments of the airport have determined that it is ready to resume commercial traffic once re-entry is approved. Structural damage assessments of homes and other buildings are ongoing. As of yesterday, 19,280 structures have been assessed within the city. They're making tremendous progress there. This weekend, satellite maps went online to survey the damage in Fort McMurray. So far, the maps have received more than 70,000 views. The maps are intended to provide a high-level overview of the most severely damaged areas, but with the caution that structures that appear to be standing may still be damaged. Higher resolution imagery will be released later this week, and we hope that those images will provide enough detail to help property owners with insurance claims and other recovery actions. Seeing those images may be very disturbing, and I urge evacuees to use the mental health supports available to them in dealing with a very stressful situation. As for essential services, AHS has developed a 4-phase plan to reestablish health services in Fort McMurray. An urgent care center has been established in tents in the parking lot of the Syncrude Sport and Wellness Center. Think of it like a high-tech MASH unit capable of providing emergency lab, X-ray, and CT services. Does it provide CT services?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure that it provides CT services. Either way, X-ray and other diagnostic work is available there now. Construction was completed on Saturday, and it's now fully operational. It's serving first responders and recovery workers in Fort McMurray and has already treated its first patients. The next stages of the plan to restore health services are to get the ER department of the hospital open and running, hopefully by the end of this month. There are approximately 400 staff deployed to the hospital working day and night on that task. General cleaning has been completed and detailed cleaning has begun. They need to clean all the medical equipment as well as the ducts and change out the filters in the HVAC system to handle the very high levels of smoke in the area. The focus will then switch to restoring other priority health services in addition to emergency and finally to full operations. 32 kilometers of fencing has been sourced to secure damaged and unsafe areas of Fort McMurray. It will take about 100 truckloads to haul it there, and we expect to have it set up by about May 18th. With respect to local government, you may recall that's one of the final conditions that be reestablished in order to facilitate re-entry. I will be meeting with the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo Council later today, and we will be hearing from them, getting their input on the re-entry process. And we will continue to work with them throughout the recovery work and planning for re-entry. With respect to evacuee support, as of the end of the day yesterday, 27,736 debit cards have been distributed, totaling $60,536,900, and helping 58,069 people. This is because, of course, a single card can be issued for several family members. So the 2 Calgary distribution centres have now been consolidated into one at the BMO Centre. The McMahon Centre is no longer operational. The Lac La Biche Centre is closed, with emergency financial assistance now being provided at the local Alberta Works office. And I want to thank everyone from Fort McMurray on this issue for their patience, as the lineups were sometimes very long, particularly in the first couple of days of distribution. And I particularly want to thank those evacuees who listened to our message and who delayed picking up their debit cards in the first couple of days to allow those who were in more desperate need to go first. As things stand now, the lineups are short and brisk. And so if you are one of those people who delayed your card pickup, I would encourage you now to go out there and collect your card. Finally, I want to thank the staff and the volunteers who've been working in these centres very hard to make this card distribution successful. We've had 800 to 900 staff working long hours on this, plus many number of volunteers. We held last week 4 telephone town halls that were very well attended, and another is planned for tonight. So, with all that information, I will now pass the mic over to Dr. Grimsrud, who can speak more about the air quality issues. And then, of course, both Scott and Chad are here to provide. Chad will be providing additional information about the state of the fire, and then we can all take your questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Premier, and good morning. The Air Quality Health Index readings have reached extreme levels in Fort McMurray and surrounding communities, and we're expecting those readings to remain high for the next 24 to 48 hours, given the current weather and wind situations. Alberta's Air Quality Index is based on the measurement of 3 contaminants, the smoke, ozone, and nitrogen dioxide. And it's generally measured in a scale of 1 to 10, but in extreme conditions, it can generate results well over 10. And I've discussed these air quality concerns with my colleagues at Municipal Affairs, Alberta Health Services, and Occupational Health and Safety, which is part of Alberta Labour. And we are recommending that all workers in the area use the correct precautions, respiratory precautions, when working, particularly when they're outdoors. Alberta Health Services continues to have air quality advisories in place for the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo, and a precaution for air quality advisory for the north and central zone. There are air quality stations in Fort Mac, as well as Fort Mackay, Anzac, and Fort Chip. There's also a mobile air quality monitoring unit headed to Fort McMurray for additional measurements. The health and safety of Albertans, and particularly those in Fort McMurray involved in the response, are our highest concern. And we will continue to measure and monitor air quality in the areas on an hourly basis, and will ensure that workers in the area have the information they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Chad Morrison with Alberta Wildfire. So as the Premier noted, the fire now is about 284,000, 285,000 hectares in size. Currently on site, we have about 1,100 firefighters with the municipal forces and ours, 46 helicopters, and over 200 plus pieces of heavy equipment working there, building fire guard and fire line, as well as we have to have up to 29 air tankers available as needed. We expect today firefighters, though, to be challenged again with extreme wildfire conditions over the next 2 to 3 days. With strong southwest winds today, we do expect the northern and northeast flanks to be challenged. We have We do have been making great progress, though, in establishing more firefighting services as we go. We've established branches in the Firebag area, Anzac, and now as well along with our partners in Saskatchewan, they've established a branch under our team here as well. We continue to make very good progress on hotspots around the community, but let me be clear, there are thousands of them around there still that firefighters have to work and clean up. With the extreme fire behavior ongoing around the outside of the fire, on the outside flanks, it's still not safe for folks to be back there. We may continue to be challenged today on those western and northern flanks because of the south winds, but we have made good progress with fire guards, and we put in over 60 kilometers of fire guard with dozers and heavy equipment. As the Premier noted, the Enbridge Tank Farm, we've been able to establish a bunch of dozer work and heavy equipment work overnight, as well as they have their industrial firefighting forces dispatched and working the scene. We expect today, though, over the next number of days to continue to have new starts that are going to challenge us in the hot and dry conditions. We expect the potential of lightning fires over the next coming days as well. There's an update to the fire that has occurred in north of Fox Creek. That's had the impact on the community of Little Smoky. We expect with high wind, even though the winds are high, they are from the south-southwest, so that's pushing that fire away from the community at this time. But we do expect that fire to grow exponentially. We did have dozers and heavy equipment and firefighters working on that fire throughout the night, and we have 15 air tankers working it early this morning. 15 air tankers yesterday, and we continue to have air tankers on it early this morning. And again, as noted, we have a large number of support from across the country now with firefighters from Saskatchewan, Ontario, BC, Northwest Territories, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Parks Canada, and many others. But again, we expect to be challenged in many days ahead with the fire conditions that we're going to see for the next 3 days. And with that, I'll turn it over to Scott. If there's anything?
We'll take questions from the floor and then questions from the phone.
Dr. Grimsrud, so can you help clarify for me you said it's an extreme air quality situation, but we've had that, that's been ongoing now. How long has it been an extreme air quality situation?
This just happened today. We had pardon me?
We had fires right in town. Wasn't it extreme air quality at that time?
Well, yes, of course. I'm talking about compared to last week, where the cooler weather really made a difference and the wind direction was different, or winds were calmer. So what the combinations I understand of the warmer weather today as well as the wind conditions really switched things around and really resulted in the air quality deteriorating significantly.
You don't want people up there. If I decide to go up there without the respiratory stuff, a healthy male or female,
right.
What would that do to me? What would happen?
Well, assuming you don't have any underlying respiratory problems, it's an irritant in your lungs. So it's going to cause you significant breathing problems if you're just without a respirator, you're taking in that air. Even if you don't have any underlying disease, it's still going to make a difference into your ability to breathe.
Long-term problems as well if I did that?
It depends on the length of your exposure.
How effective are those respirators? Are these workers who are up there right now in danger, even though they do have those?
So the N95 ones that have the little things on the sides, they are the most effective ones. They have to be fit tested before you wear them. So everybody's unique in that, and they have to have the occupational health and safety people make sure you have a correct fit on your mask. So once those are fit, then they are very effective in taking care of situations like this. So those are the respirators. There are also N100 masks, not as effective, but much more effective than if you didn't have anything at all.
People up there are using right now, or which one they're using and how often?
I know in the hospital, the workers that are up there doing the hospital and getting it back, it's a very tightly controlled situation. People were screened before they went up there to make sure they didn't have any respiratory history. And then when they're up there, they're using the N95 masks as part of their work. And, sorry?
Finish your answer, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. For the other workers, I understand, well, certainly first responders always have the N95s. For the other workers, I don't have enough information to say that, yeah.
What's the sense what 38 means? I mean, 10 is high, is
Yes.
it not? So 38, what does that mean?
Yes. I mean, it's obviously an extreme condition and one that you would want to have the correct type of protection. Ideally, the N95 mask that you're wearing in order to work in those kind of conditions. You'd want to limit your time outside working in those conditions also.
What kind of impact on the cleanup, the restoration has this had? Has work stopped, or can someone answer sort of on that front? Is there still restoration work happening today, or is this kind of shutting down?
Scott Long, Executive Director Operations, Alberta Emergency Management Agency. As the Premier said, the good news here is that we got a real jump on a lot of the reentry work that had to be done. There was a lot of progress that had been done to date. This issue cropped up recently. Most of the workers that are up there, if not all, are equipped. I mean, we anticipated there would be air quality issues, so they all have air masks. So to answer your question, right now the Regional Emergency Operations Center Forward are looking at adjusting schedules, making sure people aren't outside exposed for too long, bringing them inside. So that work is ongoing. What kind of an impact? I think it will hamper some of the work for sure, but air quality is tested daily as well. And hopefully the wind conditions and the atmospheric conditions will cooperate, and it will become less of a hazard in the days to come. But right now it's an issue we're dealing with.
Scott, you talked about a first patient at this field hospital. Is there anything we can know more about this person, who that person is, and if in what condition that person is?
Sorry, I didn't hear the
First patient
There
at
were
your...
5 patients that were treated.
No, I'm sorry, I don't have
Perhaps this would be for Scott. I'm just interested in the tank farm. Can you tell us how much petroleum is currently being stored there and what sort of risk it poses with this fire 1 kilometer away?
I'm sorry, I don't have exactly the details on how much is there or what nature is stored there, but I can assure you it's critical infrastructure. And Wildfire, Chad can talk to how many assets we had there on the ground yesterday. The wind today is favorable. It's pushing it away, and I know that the industrial firefighters that are there are doing remediation, mitigation measures with their foam trucks. These are the guys that are, and gals that are trained to do this. So for now, it is under control and stable because the wind is cooperating with us.
Chad, can you sort of clarify, you talked about hot spots in town. Are you referring to what you, like the stuff on the edge that was still threatening, or are you talking about sparks that are coming in and still could torch some of these houses?
So to clarify the hotspots, and then I can add to the other piece there too. No, within forest fires, they have it in the duff and the burning in the ground below. So in the forested areas outside, in the surrounding forested areas that have been burnt around the communities, they still have to patrol through and make sure that those are all extinguished. In terms of the ember stuff, that's not an issue. But on the outside, if we have large fire behavior, that can be that'll be issue more in the forested areas. And and for the tank farm, again today, good conditions. We've actually had really good success holding things there over the last over the weekend, but obviously very close, a very high priority for us. But with the weather and with the winds expected today, we expect it to hold today, and we hope to actually secure that site even a little bit more. So we'll have hopefully good luck there by the end of the day.
About the resources that you've got protecting that critical infrastructure.
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers there, but we actually have a full branch dedicated in that Anzac area. So they've been able to secure much of the Anzac area, and as obviously now they're also focused on kind of securing it here. So we had a number of tankers working there over the weekend. They had good success, as well as a number of pieces of heavy equipment have cleared away a lot of that vegetation and brush from the site. So again, looking very good there. And if as we need to, we continue to remove that vegetation and brush so that it's secured long term.
But if I still have a house in Fort
So we'll
McMurray,
take Dean, and then
Is
Brianna,
it-
did you have one?
Yeah,
And then we're
it's
going to go
is
to
it
the,
still
did you
under
have one?
threat then from spark? I mean, how safe is if my house is still standing in Fort McMurray, how safe is it?
At this point, I would say the black around the community actually makes it quite safe for the community itself. But that being said, there's still lots of fire out there on the landscape, and there's still hot spots in there have to be put out, and there can be a flare up. There's still lots of unburned green areas inside the fire itself, so we want to make sure that that's all protected. There is, as you know, a green forested area there within the community itself, so we want to make sure that we're patrolling vigilantly and making sure that that's not an issue. So obviously still an area of high importance for us as a top priority to make sure that we continue to mop up around town.
I just wanted to ask about the ER. Does that have to be up and running in order for people to come back, like fully up and running the ER?
That's an issue that we're getting advice on from officials to evaluate the scope of health services that need to be put in place in order to bring people back. It's a balancing issue in terms of getting people back to their homes and giving them the security and the ability to rebuild their lives against the extent of the most acute healthcare issue that could arise. And so we're in the midst of getting the best advice that we possibly can from AHS and emergency management officials, and we'll be making a decision on that fairly soon.
Sounds like the hospital might not be ready when the people can go back, is that right?
I think it's fair to say that the complete, fully functioning hospital will not be completely reoperationalized before people come back. But the question is, what types of healthcare services can we provide in the interim?
On the hospital then, when everything will be up and running?
No, not yet. No.
2 months minimum?
I will bust out with a timeline when we've got it.
We're going to go to the phone now. Operator, please put through the first caller.
Your next question comes from Bill Fortier with CTV News. Your line is open.
Hi, I think maybe this question is for Chad. I'm just wondering, hoping to get a little more information on all the smoke in Fort McMurray. I'm wondering where it came from. Like the fire that affected Fort McMurray seems to have moved on. Is this a result of some of that back burning we heard about over the weekend, or is it coming back from the fire to the northeast of here?
Yeah, thanks for your question. It's Chad again from Wildfire. What the question was about the smoke itself. So that fire is huge. It's almost 300,000 hectares, and there continues to be lots of burning on the edges in the forested area. What you're seeing right now from an air quality perspective is something we're used to seeing in Wildfire. They had fairly heavy inversion due to the atmospheric conditions this morning. As the winds continue to pick up and move around, that'll hopefully move much of that improve air quality throughout today. But also, too, with much of the fire burning in the south, with south-southwest winds, we're seeing lots of smoke in Fort McMurray, and that'll continue to ebb and flow in the coming days ahead. Really, what we do need here is to hopefully have some rain to take some of that smoke out of the fire, but the majority of the smoke is actually from the fire that's surrounding the community burning in the forested areas.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from Cullen Bird with Fort McMurray Today. Your line is open.
Hi, this question is either for Karen or for Chad, depending on who can answer it best. Just a question about the first responders. Obviously, there is concern today about air quality considering the smoke. There's also a lot of smoke during the first days of the fire, and it wasn't just smoke from the forest surrounding Fort McMurray. It was from the houses and structures themselves that were burning. Is there any concern now for any health concerns or threats to health that could be posed by smoke inhalation that has already occurred?
Yeah, thanks for your question, Chad, from Alberta Wildfire again. Obviously, smoke is a concern for everybody, including first responders. So some of the things we do to deal with that, obviously, is municipal firefighters that are working around structures and stuff have all the proper breathing apparatuses and all that. Also, too, we're rotating our folks through. They talked about exposure lengths and that type of thing. So one of the things, obviously, is shifting workers, shorter shifts and making sure that we actually get people arrested and for days off sooner. So that's another technique as well. When in the wildland side of things, often what we're going to be doing is we're going to be fighting fire downwind, and so we're in the fresh air just because A, it's safer, and B, when you have smoke and the smoke away from you, it's better for the workers as well. So it's part of our sort of anchor in, and then we try and flank it and try and pinch off the fire at the head as we go. So that's part. There's a part of a big whole suite of things that we use to mitigate that.
But there's no concern that in the chaos of those first few days that certain first responders didn't have all the protective equipment that they needed in terms of breathing in that smoke?
Yeah, I don't have the details on that right now, but we obviously are looking into it from that perspective, but it's probably too early to note that. But my understanding is that our firefighters and the municipal firefighters take all the necessary safety precautions that are required when they're fighting fire. This isn't their first time fighting fire. They should be out there, and they know what to expect and what to do, especially when it comes to the house fire side of it.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from James Wood with Calgary Herald. Your line is open.
Hi, Premier. I have two questions for you. I'd like to ask you something. The Municipal Affairs business plan that came out with the budget warned that because of climate change, the province is going to be facing an increasing amount of both floods and wildfire threats. And I'd like to ask you, what was your government, what were you doing before this disaster happened to try and prepare for this changing climate, and how has this current disaster affected how you're going to be planning moving forward?
Well, as you quite rightly identify, and as the report identified, we had sort of the ongoing mitigation efforts that we continue to put in place with respect to flood preparation and flood prevention. And at the same time, ironically, you're also dealing with drought and fire issues. So with respect to the latter, we had the flat top recommendations, and officials were continuing to work their way through the recommendations within that report. And we were also had already begun the process of working with the federal government to talk about how we could sort of reimagine the issue of disaster prevention and the efforts that need to go into that to avoid the disaster or at least limit it should something happen. So that work had begun, but there's no question as we go through this process, we will. I mean, it's simply wise and good governments to go through what just happened and is happening and review what we can do to improve it, and if there's more that we can do on the preventative front. It's a big issue. I mean, the issue of forests around our communities. I mean, it's been around. It's been there for a long time. The age of the forests, all that kind of stuff, and so we need to sit down and figure out how we can move forward in terms of improving prevention in a cost-effective way.
Okay, and Premier, I know the financial issue in relation to this disaster, it's a moving target, but at this point, do you have any sort of minimal even amount that that it will be at least this amount that the province is spending on fighting the fire and assistance and things like that?
Well, it's a little. I know it's. I mean, the cabinet approved a $200 million allotment a week and a half ago, and so that's been dedicated already. But we know that I mean the costs will change, and there are a lot of moving targets. We we have to assess the degree to which recovery efforts are insurable. We have to. We're in the process of having conversations with the federal government about the terms of the federal program, and of course, as you know, the Red Cross is collecting unprecedented amounts of money as well. So, and then in terms of the level of damage, as you've heard, we're almost through sort of the first cut at the most light touch assessment that we can in terms of whether buildings can be occupied or not occupied. So there's a lot of assessment and calculations still to be done, so it'd be a bit premature to come up with a number.
We have time for one more question from the phone. Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from Jason Markusoff with Maclean's. Your line is open.
With 2 weeks left in the month, should Fort McMurrayites assume that they will not be getting back into their city until June?
As I've said a number of times, we understand that people in Fort McMurray, the residents of Fort McMurray who've been evacuated, desperately want a calendar and a plan that they can plan their lives around. We understand that that is probably the most critical thing that we can do. At the same time, giving them deadlines, guessing about deadlines, throwing out potential scenarios when we don't have all the information at our disposal would be irresponsible because people would build plans around that, and then if it changed, it would actually be yet another thing for them to manage. So we are working as quickly as we can to come up with as predictable a schedule as we can, and once we get that, we will announce it.
And will there be any sort of viewing for people who have had their homes destroyed, or will only people who have homes left standing be allowed to re-enter?
No, I mean, there's no question that we'll find a way to allow those people to come and view their homes. And we'll also be looking at transitional housing options for those people in the Fort McMurray area, because there are housing opportunities in Fort McMurray now, because there's a very high vacancy rate there. So certainly we'll be consulting and working collaboratively with the regional officials on that issue. And the other thing, as I said in my opening remarks, is that we will have a much more detailed satellite imagery that we can offer to evacuees by the end of this week.
We'll take Dean's question, then we'll have to leave it there for today.
Premier, can you update us on the school situation? You said they all except the one that was under construction were intact. Mm-hmm. Now that you've had a chance, are they still quite functioning? And also, you saw one, I think, in Abasant, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. That was like a junior high, I think, literally surrounded by devastation. What are you going to do about getting kids back to that school?
Well, that's a very good question. We've had preliminary conversations with people and, of course, only preliminary damage assessments. At this point, it seems that every school, including the one that we saw, are habitable and can be used again. But particularly that example is a good one where it's surrounded by devastation. So the question becomes, what work can be done over the summer to make that a little bit less harsh. So that's the kind of work that we'll be working with more collaboratively with the regional municipality itself for them to give us advice on where they think their citizens would most like their kids to go. Once we've had a chance to get inside those schools as well and make sure that their air quality and HVAC systems are up to speed.
So all the schools basically are closed for the summer now, no
Yes,
matter when they go back.
It's unlikely that anyone will be going back. Yeah, but
Thanks,
we're hoping that they're up and running. They can all be up and running by September.
Thanks, everyone. If you guys do have questions that we didn't get to today, please direct them to the Provincial Operations Media line. Thanks.
Thank you.